Hi, I'm Michael Christopher Cole. I'm a writer and new author. My first novel is coming out on November 4th. And I've been self-publishing this and working on it, and I wanted to share with you some of the things that I'm learning of that process. And so for this video, let's get acquainted and talk about your manuscript. I can't tell you how to write your book. Your book is obviously it's yours and it's your ideas, and sometimes there are books that are weird and wild, and there are books that are standard and kind of like formulaic, and they all have their place. One of my favorite books of all time is House of Leaves, and it's bizarre. There's footnotes that you're reading as part of the book, and there's all kinds of stuff. Then I also like, I like a good Michael Crichton book or whatever. For you, I think that the important thing is that you want to get your manuscript as good as possible before we even get started in the self-publishing process. So let's talk about that right now. Before you're ready to publish, you really need to get your book as close to the finish line as possible. And that's overwhelming. That's daunting. You do it by yourself as best as possible. You edit, you revise, you rewrite, you edit, you just keep going until you are like, okay, I cannot make this any better, or I think that I'm gonna spend 10 years just revising. You can just say, okay, I'm good. Let's talk about free tools. If you're writing in a notebook, I mean, you're going to need to type it up at some point. When you type it up, whatever, almost any word processor that I'm aware of has certain tools built in. Spell check, some level of grammar check at this point, unless you're writing on, I think, is it George R. R. Martin or Stephen King or one of them that writes on like a computer from the like 80s that has nothing but the word processor. They may not have the greatest things, but if you're on Google Docs or an updated version of Microsoft Word or Apple Pages or any of those, you're going to get some spell check, you're going to get some grammar check. And those are good, and you should follow those. You don't have to follow them to a T, because sometimes you're going to want to make flourishes, and that's fine. There are other tools that I think can be really helpful. One that I want to shout out and kind of mention that I use on every single chapter. I do it individually on chapters because I don't want to load a whole book into it. It's the website, the HemingwayApp.com. I'll link it below. The HemingwayApp.com. And you pull in, you can pull in a paragraph, you can pull in a chapter, you could probably pull in a whole novel. I would not do that way. What it does is it gives you like more advanced kind of grammar stuff, and readability notes. So, for example, I use too many adverbs. I have always done it, and I'm not always aware of it when I'm writing and when I'm revising, because unfortunately, you're going to miss when you're revising. You're going to miss some of your own stuff. That's why later on I'm going to tell you about getting an editor. You need an editor because you can't edit your own books. But as far as revising, this is a great way to get your book a little more ready before you start showing it to people, to get your manuscript ready before you start showing it to people, because ultimately, like, you can make your sentences sound better, and because Hemingway will tell you, okay, this sentence is a run on, and you can break it down into better sentences. You're using too many adverbs, and that can really, adverbs are necessary, and I know that adverbs kind of get shit on, but like you can't, it's almost impossible to avoid them altogether. Good luck trying. I am really bad at it, so maybe I'm not the right person to talk about this with, but that doesn't mean you have to overuse them, and overusing them absolutely will make you sound less. It makes your writing weaker, to overuse them. When you have a nice, well-placed adverb, it will work great. And then instead of, you don't go to right to self-publishing, then you go and you say, okay, here are 5 to 10 people that I trust to give me good feedback, and I will give it to them. You may be limited on your options of who you can pick, but if you can, try to pick someone that is the target audience of the book. Try to pick somebody who maybe is an audience that you'd like to the book to go out to, but you're not entirely sure how they'll receive it. For my book, for example, I was worried how women might read my book because it's about men's views on sexuality and relationships and all of that. And so I thought, I want to have women read it. So I made sure that when I was getting my friends to read copies of it, that I included as many women as I trusted to do that. And I think that, that alleviated some of my fear, but I also was open to, if they came back with, hey, this comes off as sexist, or this seems like you don't know how to write women, or whatever that problem might be, I could address it. So try to find maybe where your weakness is, and aim for that audience with at least one or two of your readers. And then when you're done with those readers, and you don't have to take all the advice you're given. Some people are going to give you crazy advice. Some people are going to give you good advice. Some people might give you good advice and it just doesn't work for your sensibility and for what you want the book to be. That's fine. Just go ahead and give thought to everything and figure out what you need to incorporate. This is where it can get a little intimidating. You need to find an editor. Because honestly, and I mentioned this earlier, but like, you need to have somebody else edit for you. I know that you might think I'm great with grammar and spelling, and but you don't know. You need another set of eyes. I really think that if you try to self-edit, you're going to regret it, and you don't want to get to the publication, have it published, and have someone pick up your book and say, "Hey, you didn't have an editor on this." Edit. If you can pay for an editor, you probably should pay for an editor. It's going to be your best bet. You may have someone who's an English teacher or a English major that's in your life. They might be very helpful in this process for you. And you just say, hey, like, this is what I want to go over, what I'm hoping you can help me with. Obviously, you want to have them double check for grammar and spelling and punctuation. That's like a given. And English teachers are really good for that. You also want to say, hey, let me know if anything doesn't work, if anything absolutely works, how it flows, how it works as a whole, how it works as individual chapters. Those kind of things are good for feedback. If there's any characters that need bolstering, if there's anything that is too excessive, like you're going into too much detail on, that's the kind of feedback you want. And then maybe have some specific questions for your editor. For my book, The Dinner Party, one of my questions for my editor was, do you like the title? Does the title fit the book? We didn't change the title. He liked it. But I didn't know. Because the dinner party within the book is maybe a quarter of what's going on in the book. And I know that sometimes that works, and sometimes that is like, where's the dinner party? Where, I'm 150 pages in. Where's the dinner party? So I wanted to make sure that he thought it fit, and he said it did. And all my readers so far have agreed that the title has fit. So that's something to do. You might say, hey, I'm really trying to make this character heroic. Do you think they come off as heroic? Or do they come off as wishy-washy? Or, like, have some kind of specific questions, because your editor is going to be able to help you if they know what you're wondering about, and they won't necessarily be able to help you if, they may not, if I had not asked about the title, my editor might have never thought about it, and then I'd have published the book and been like, should I have named it something else? So it's a great way of doing that. Now, like I said, if you can hire somebody, that's going to be helpful. There are good deals on Fiverr and other platforms to get editors, but it can be an expensive process. And self-publishing, one of the benefits of self-publishing is that you can do it relatively inexpensively depending on how you go about it, which is what I'm hoping to do to teach you all about in this video series. I did not have the money for an editor, and there were other spots where I had to spend money, and I knew I was going to have to spend money, but I have a really good I have a friend, one of my best friends is really good with English. And so I thought I'll ask him, and ultimately he did a great job. Get an editor as best as you can. This is not something to cut corners on.